Today I'm going to talk about the process of setting up mapping workflows that can help you specifically with sort of iterative designs and how you can do as much design work as possible up front. So you have something so that doing something seemingly as simple as changing the underlying data is less of an arduous task. Recently, I worked on a story that put this entire way of thinking just through its paces. What started as a simple, I just need to split one column of this CSV into two, ballooned into creating multiple animations for more than a dozen examples. So brief introduction to the story example that I'll be using throughout this talk. If you remember, around the holidays last year, the state of air travel in the US came under some pretty extreme scrutiny. First, a winter storm caused Southwest to be just overwhelmed by holiday travel and kind of meltdown. And then a couple of weeks later, an FAA system failure drew national attention when it grounded all planes in the US for a morning. The quick turnaround data story we had originally envisioned never emerged. But these two events sort of turned our attention to airlines in general, and two reporters on the business desk, Sydney Ember and Emily Steele, started digging. Eventually, they uncovered all of these really concerning reports around airline safety, and this was accompanied by a treasure trove of data. It was a twisty story, months in the making, that when I was brought into the project, no one really knew what the final story would look like. Sydney and Emily had been tracking incidents as they heard about them in a spreadsheet, but as they learned more about individual events and the story took shape, which incidents they were focusing on kept changing. I needed to figure out a way to design graphics for a story when we had no idea what the final examples would be. So it was in this context that eventually Emily slacked me a spreadsheet of lat longs, followed by, it basically was a single flight path, and she was like, can we do anything with this? And we had two issues. The first was that the CSVs had this pesky position column, which meant they needed to be edited a little bit before they could be mapped. And the second was that a traditional top-down map view really didn't capture the emotion of how intense these near misses were. I needed a way to quickly and consistently adjust both the X, Y, and Z axis of this data and change the view angle for each incident. Now, if I knew for certain I only needed to do this once, I'd just open up Excel, text a column, split the numbers up. But that's a couple of steps, and it would take me a minute or two. And for this project, I ended up having more than 50 CSVs of flight paths. There was no way I was going to do that for each flight. So this brings me to the first and probably the most powerful or repeatable part of this workflow. I needed to structure a pipeline that would loop through all my processing steps and make a new map every time the data changed. But first, I needed to know what things I would want to tweak and how they were related to the final visualization. And knowing what you need to know before you know it is just unknowable. In code, these were pretty straightforwardly variables, but for a project like this that's mostly visualization and not exactly analysis, the design that happens in code and the design that happens in design software tends to kind of blend together. So I'm going to just refer to this all as levers. And so when you're designing for change, you need to know what your levers are. When I'm setting up a design pipeline, I ask myself how many times I'm going to need to do something, how often am I going to need to tweak it just a little bit to get it right, and if the answer is lots, I'll try to find a way to code and loop through the task while tweaking these different levers. In this case, that meant scripting both the processing of each new CSV and the initial mapping work. I set up a small Jupyter notebook so I could use glob and pandas and loop through every file and really easily break up that CSV so I had something to build on. But to address the second issue, how do I map these in 3D, I opted to use Matplotlib, a program that really isn't intended for detailed cartography, especially something with many layers and you want to have a lot of control. But for this project, I really needed to include that Z-axis, and Matplotlib became a really flexible solution because of its ability to intuitively plot that vertical value. And that choice actually became invaluable later in the project when my colleaguer Eleanor Lutz was brought in to help figure out how to animate some of these plots. The ultimate goal for the script that I was writing was to be able to change just the identifier for the incident in question and to produce a 3D map or video without any additional script fiddling in the script for me. For this story, that meant creating an external file that I could read using pandas and avoid an unwieldy number of variables within the file. And so every time the reporters added a new example, I just add a line to the sheet, download the flight paths, and have a reproducible graphic pretty quickly. So the primary levers in this script are the offset times, the angle, and the rotation of the plot. To map these, I couldn't cut the path spatially. I needed to do it temporally so that the lines that represented not the same distance traveled, but the same time elapsed. It made sense to set a custom time cutoff for the before and after point where the two planes were closest in space, and that would act as the geographic extent of the plot. So to calculate the distance between two planes at a given time, I used GeoPandas, specifically the z-points, to get a 3D distance. And I would note that I linearly interpolated the values between the times because the transponders that Flight Radar 24 is using doesn't read locations in at even time intervals, so the data needed to be made even for cropping purposes. So once I had that near point calculated, it wouldn't need to be calculated again. It was not a lever. But once I had that missed time, I needed to start finding the best rotation to view the incident. This is something that could be done iteratively using a combination of just straight QGIS and a QGIS 3JS plugin to get kind of a rough idea of the angle and the map extent I wanted. To figure this out, I'd export a shapefile using my filtered data frame, and then it would just open. And QGIS makes this super easy to do iteratively because every time I changed offset times and made a new shapefile, it could be updated automatically within the program. This is probably the part of the process that took the longest once I got everything figured out, because determining a rotation that made sense in QGIS, I kind of had to reverse engineer that to a value in Matplotlib because I never figured out how to determine what the 3GS view angle actually was. So this is an example of what I mean by cropping by offset times. This is what the map would look like when the flight paths are cropped to 36 seconds after the near miss, and this is what it would look like cropped to 2 minutes after. To make these two graphs, all you needed to change was the offset 2 value. At this point, my small multiple was ready for styling, but this was also my line in the sand, because once I brought the SVG out of Matplotlib, to be styled in Illustrator, I could no longer quickly and easily change any of the external variables like rotation or offset time. But that doesn't mean those variables didn't have to change, so I needed to figure out a way to do this quickly in Illustrator as well. A quick return to animating, though, because this is also the point where Eleanor took the idea of looping through the plane paths one step further and then settled on views. She said, what if we loop through each second that we have data instead of plotting it all at once, basically mapping the planes in relation to each other and creating frames that could be composited into a video. By thinking of the end product as a lever, either as a single image or a series of frames, we were able to pretty easily pivot from a static visualization to a video using the same code. This is also the point where Eleanor did lots of clever things, like converting the point that was representing a plane to a custom font that could be differently angled, and she figured out how to add the fading tails, which gives the animation this really lovely, smooth movement. So just like I identified levers in my code that could adjust the final look of the graphic, I needed to figure out what the levers were in Illustrator. If I have an element that's repeated again and again, how do I structure the design to use that element? With the Near Misses project, Eleanor and I focused our efforts on making the animated maps that appeared at the top of the story, but there were also instances that were referenced throughout that didn't gel until a couple of days before we wanted to finalize the graphics. So I needed to make a bunch of small multiples quickly. And because of the output SVGs in the code, we just went through the structure. They were basically all structured the same. I could use some of my favorite levers in Illustrator to produce these really quickly. The Python outputs were just these blue and red SVGs overlaid on a perspective grid. And my favorite trick for automating styles in Illustrator is to use graphic styles for basically everything. They make it so that I can be really certain that my map elements are consistently styled across artwords, strokes are the same width, colors are the same, etc. For those that don't use these, graphic styles are a collection of reusable appearance properties that can be applied to many groups, objects, layers in the project as you want. To make your graphic style, you just style it in the appearance panel and then hit the plus button at the bottom of the graphic style panel. You can then rename it and it'll tell you whether or not those styles applied. So for this project, I gave the before and after of each flight its own graphic style and just went to town. If I changed my mind, I could change them all at once. Everything was in the same artboard. So the night before we wanted to publish these, we had a debate about whether or not the near misses box would be tomato or black. And it was really quick to kind of change and decide on the fly which we wanted to look like without going in and changing every single map. And finally, the other lever that made these super fast was just converting all of the points to symbols. Making sure that the circles were symbols meant that if I decided to change my orange at the last minute, all I had to do was change these Flight 2 icons, and everything matched, and it was done. So yeah, that's kind of how I automated large parts of making these graphics, and hopefully it serves as inspiration for how you could automate some of these steps in your own workflows. Let me know if you have any questions.
We have time for like 2 questions. Does anyone have questions for Leanne? Nope. Go Going once, going twice. Okay, we've got a question.
Thank you. I might have missed it, but could you talk a little bit about what went into animating the shadows on the? Was it the shadows on the ground in that animation?
Yeah, it was the same kind of custom font, just with it was assigned a different color and given a slight blur. And then instead of mapping to the Z variable, it was just set to 0, so it stayed on the ground.
We have time for one more question, if anyone has a question. Nope. Okay, cool. Thank you very much.